One thing I love about this podcast is that a lot of people who aren't necessarily familiar with all of the ins and outs of pharmacy billing and ratings and all of these things sometimes find their way to this podcast. So can you kind of explain what happened? So it sounds like you went into this existing pharmacy. You said, hey, I see some ways to improve. So if the previous owner sold that, obviously they were struggling in some areas, whether it was management or profitability or just being overextended. So you saw some areas to improve, probably operationally, but it sounds like you really focused in on some metrics. So you mentioned PQA and you mentioned scores. So briefly kind of summarize what scores. Is that 5-star ratings, and how does that work, and why did those come about?
Yeah, well, and doctors need to get on board too, because, it's been tried with us and now it's going to affect them. Well, actually, Pioneer, on your dashboard, as you're filling prescriptions, you can look and see what percentage of the time these medicines are being filled. We focus on your statins, your ARBs, ACEs, and your diabetes medicine. That's what we were focusing on at first, to make sure that they were compliant. You don't want to see anybody come in and, hey, they're 100% on their pain medication, but 60% on their cholesterol medication, diabetes medication, So, following Pioneer, and that's what the eQuib dashboard is all about. They're letting you know, hey, these people are failing. They're not adherent, and that's what's affecting your bottom line, your reimbursements. So I just, worked with that, ran reports, and now it's really once a week, Nick will run a report, make sure, hey, yep, everybody's already, we have them, pretty much a lot of them med synced.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer, and I even did an MTM the other day for a person. They paid me $30 just to med sync them.
Yeah.
Hey, perfect opportunity for me to start packaging this patient's medicine,
Yeah, well, that's the key. If we rolled out Medicare Part D, it's going to save the healthcare landscape a lot of money if you can be proactive, if you can focus on that preventative care. So we see that rolling out, and then we see, hey, we need to find ways to keep people accountable, or use a carrot and a stick and keep these patients taking their medications. And you mentioned those therapeutic classes that are those priority therapeutic classes, diabetes, hypertension, and cholesterol. Those are the big ones that are going to keep people out of the hospital.
Correct, especially in this day and age of COVID.
Yeah.
You need to stay on top of your disease states, because it is what it is.
Yeah. And so I imagine if you're, not going, if all of your routines have changed over the past year or two, I imagine adherence is also going to be one of those routines that may suffer. So PQA has the standards that they've set. You need to take a medication blank percent of the time, 80%, whatever, for it to be effective. And so they have some metrics. They use the PDC.
Yes.
Which is proportion of days covered. And then Pioneer has the PDC and also like the MPR. So, when you do have a patient who's coming into your pharmacy, you're filling their prescriptions. How do you go about keeping an eye on that? Because while you're filling and billing, it's kind of hard to just look at, are you taking every medication all of the time? Like how are you actually keeping up with that during workflow and, realistically and not just theoretically?
Well, when they call in for, let's just say they'll call in, I need rosuvastatin filled or anything. We're on top of it. We're already looking at their profile. Well, hey, you got your metformin that same day. You should be out of that as well. And so, oh yeah, I only have 2 or 3 left. So we really try to keep them all in sync, encourage them. And I mean, I'm just as guilty. However, I package my medicines now because I was not compliant. So I can't practice unless I'm, preach it unless I'm practicing it. So that packaging works and I understand I'm a lot younger than a lot of my patients, but I'll walk away and go back and I'm like, did I take it or did I think I took it?
Right.
When it's in a bottle, however, when it's packaged, I've got the day and the date on it. No, I just thought about it. So let me pop open that Monday's package or whatever and take my medicine. But on refills, we try to catch them when they call in for them, and
nice.
Proactiveness. You talk to them. And not only that, and I guess we forget, but we really need to talk to them about their diet. That makes a big difference. We're not just there to dispense, we're healthcare providers. So, I try to encourage them. I had a lady who was a newfound diabetic. And she's like, but, I don't eat sweets. And they automatically put her on insulin. So I had to teach her how to use insulin because that particular office didn't teach her. She's like, I don't understand. I don't eat sweets. I was like, well, it's South Louisiana now. I said, but do you eat rice and potatoes? Do you like beer? And she's like, oh, yeah, I like my beer. And I was like, oh, and my rice and my potatoes. So I had to explain to her, it's not just that sweet tooth. We've got to cut back on carbs or watch what carbs we eat and intake. But she was like, wow, I didn't know that.
Thanks for listening to this clip from Beyond the Scripts, presented by the Catalyst Pharmacy Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please support our channel by liking, subscribing, and clicking the notification bell so that you'll be notified anytime we post new content. To stay up to date with all of the latest independent pharmacy news and content, follow PioneerRx on your preferred social media platform.